Welcome to It's Always Sunny in Occupied Japan. I'm your host, Red. Today we're going to be talking about Jin-Roh, the Wolf Brigade. How about you guys introduce yourself?
My name is Patty.
And I'm Lugia, and inside of us there's a beast.
Are you guys familiar with the story of Little Red Riding Hood?
No, yes.
Yeah.
You
Perhaps.
realize we've done an episode on Hoodwinked, right?
Well, it's a little different take this time, but yeah. Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about Jin-Roh, the Wolf Brigade. Released in 1999, directed by Hiroyuki Okiura, and written by Mamoru Oshii, who we've talked about quite a few times on this show. I believe, yeah, he directed Ghost in the Shell and Pat Labor, which we both talked about. Yeah, you want guys just want to jump into it? Is there anything else you want to talk about before we start?
No, actually, I do have a question regarding Jin-Roh.
Yes.
Is this part of a larger series? Because I think I read something about that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. I have seen the other movies, so I can give you some context if you guys need it. But ultimately, this movie, how do I put this? This movie is the most popular of the trilogy by far. Like most people have not seen the other two films, so to the vast majority of people, it's basically standalone. But yeah. So on that note, so Mamoru Oshii, he wanted to create what was ultimately became Jin-Roh several years prior. It was planned to be the third of the trilogy. Well, it is a third of the trilogy, but it was originally planned to be live action like the other two films, but it wasn't possible because at the time he got preoccupied working on Ghost in the Shell, and he couldn't make the two films at the same time. But he also didn't want someone else to direct the final episode. Ironic, of course. So he just paused it and then decided that he would like the final film to be an anime instead. So originally it was going to be a 6 episode original video animation OVA, which is that's what the Pat Labor thing was, if you recall. So he was originally planning on making it an anime series because Oshii knew the company Bandai Visual, which later became Bandai Namco, was interested in having him do a series for them. The manga that he made was also 6 chapters, so I think the idea was just to adapt that. But yeah, so when he proposed the project at the meeting, they asked him to direct Ghost in the Shell. They greenlit the project, but they're like, "Can you direct Ghost in the Shell?" And he was like, "Okay, sure." Due to Ghost in the Shell's success, the OVA idea changed into a film. So Oshii reluctantly gave up the directorial role, but when considering who to hand off the project to, initially he was gonna get the animation director for Pat Labor 2, but he had no interest. That said director did not want to do it. So then instead he pulled another frequent collaborator, Hiroyuki Okiura, who worked on him with Ghost in the Shell and Pat Labor 2. He was basically like, the most capable staff member of the studio. So it was like, it was basically a promotion. Originally, he wasn't planning on writing the film, but because Okiura was a first-time director, he figured, he should just to, make it easier on him. Oshii ultimately found the experience frustrating, because according to him, the moment you write, you want to direct, but the result would unavoidably become different from what he pictured in his head due to the fact that he's not directing. So anyway, to get into Okiura, he actually vastly prefers traditional animation. So this film was drawn entirely by hand, requiring 8,000 cells. Oshii said he was allergic to computers. So at the time, like the animating on computers was not, a crazy idea. But yeah, no. Every single thing you saw in this film was hand drawn. There is not a single computer thing in it.
Honestly, I thought the special ops suits would have been CG.
They aren't. Oshii said that if he directed the film, he would have used computers, just like he did for Ghost in the Shell, and it would have probably been like 30,000 cells instead. But we got this. Okay, so before I actually get into the plot, I'm just going to give you a little, I guess, lore breakdown. The movie opens with this too, but so Jin-Roh is set in a authoritarian post-war Japan. So this is an alternate history story. So in this story, Nazi Germany won World War II and then occupied Japan. Japan in this timeline is a member of the Allies. So eventually, however, Nazi Germany, fell apart. It denazified back to the Weimar Republic, and but it still occupied Japan, and attempted to globalize and modernize Japan, which resulted in civil unrest and a bunch of anti-government left-wing terrorist attack. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Japanese history, but basically the entire punchline of this is that this is exactly what did happen in Japan after World War II. Is just instead of Nazi Germany, it was the U.S. doing all this. It is a critique of fascism, but it is more a sly dig at America than it is at Germany. With the regular police unable to handle spiked terrorist activity, the Japanese government forms the Capitol Police and their Special Armed Garrison, or the Kererbos, a heavily armed counter-terrorist unit equipped with these pirate exoskeletons. So Jin-Roh is about a Kererbos member, Kazuki Fusei, who, after witnessing a young terrorist he ordered to execute and a suicide bombing, meets Kei Emimiya, who claims to be the girl's sister. They have a relationship that forms while there's a background inter-service rivalry between the Kererbos and the regular police and the public service division. And there's a secret fourth faction, which is the Wolf Brigade, but they're sort of kept mysterious. It basically opens on a riot, and then the main character, rather than shooting this suicide bomber girl, he freezes up, but of course she detonates the bomb, and this causes damages to Kerebos' reputation, and Fuse is effectively put on leave.
He also has PTSD from it.
And eventually, he, while visiting the girl's grave, he meets someone who claims to be her older sister, and they quickly develop a relationship. However, it is revealed that this is not her sister. This is another Little Red Riding Hood, which is the name of the terrorist. She was basically being coerced into acting on behalf of public security, who's basically trying to get evidence against the Kerebos. It's basically like an internal affairs type deal. I think the way to describe it is they basically want these disparate organizations to just fall under one umbrella. Later when they try to trap Fuse, he sneaks in, takes them all out, and escapes with Kay. But then it's revealed that Fuse is a member of the Wolf Brigade, the secret, deep cover counterintelligence group. They were fully aware of this whole plot and everything. So yeah, it's just a lot of twists upon twists upon twists in terms of backstabbing and betrayal and whatnot. Yeah, ultimately, Fuse kills agents in a shootout, and at the end, he's told to tie up loose ends, which is killing Kay, which he's distraught by, but then he eventually does. And then as a final twist, it's kind of revealed that even if he didn't do it, it would have happened anyway. He had no choice. So what did you guys think?
So, to start, after the opening exposition where they explain everything that's been going on in Japan, for the first several minutes, we cut back and forth between, the riot going on up top and also the Red Riding Hood girl transporting the explosives. Based on that, I thought it was going to be she's the main character and we're just seeing how this world is through her eyes. And no, she
She
dies.
explodes.
You can kind
I'm
of
like,
think of it
"Oh."
like Psycho. Psycho does a similar thing where we follow like a main female character, and then she dies part way in, and then we're with a different main character for the rest of the ride.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. I really thought she would be the main character, but no, it's the guy who witnessed her die. I'm like, okay.
When I watched it, the first thing that sort of came to my mind was like 1984 and Fahrenheit 451, because those were also about dudes who were like in this government agency group and then like befriend someone who's kind of like an anti-government person, and then they try to run away and it ends in tragedy.
Anyway, yeah, wasn't expecting the girl to die and that it would shift over to the other guy. But I'm sorry to say I wasn't really grabbed by this film that much. There were a few things that I found pretty compelling, especially whenever it drew comparisons to the Little Red Riding Hood fairy tale. And there was that one dream sequence with the wolves that I thought was pretty cool. But overall, I just thought this one kind of dragged.
Question, did you watch this subbed or dubbed?
Dubbed.
Okay, I did too.
I watched the sub but there isn't much of a difference, so I don't think that would affect your enjoyment.
I don't know if
Again,
they
not
made
bad
any
by
changes
any
to the
means,
script between the sub and
It
dub.
just wasn't really. It just didn't really grab me that much.
I liked it
Okay.
a little bit more. I think in terms of tone and atmosphere, this movie nails it, as we also like look into the psychology of Fuse and how he was like affected by it and how he's being manipulated. What I don't really jive with is the last act, where it just becomes twist upon twist upon twist. It was very hard to keep up, and I was left a little bit confused by the end. I understand the part where Fuse has to like make the choice between killing Kay or not, and like how that mentally affects him, since like Kay is gonna die anyway, and like he's got no choice in the matter. But in terms of everything else leading up to that moment, I couldn't keep up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when I watched it, I was surprised by like how many twists upon twists. I kind of like went through it again just so I could like keep track. Yeah, I liked the allusions to the Little Red Riding Hood thing, especially because like it's like the wolf metaphor to me kind of reminded me of like Full Metal Jacket, where like you're not turned into a you're taking like men and turning them into like machines, like, almost turning them into like an animal. He's more of like a dog on a leash than a wolf, but I liked how it was almost like a more, I guess, tragic tale on like the Little Red Riding Hood thing, because like both are considered sort of deceptive. Both the Little Red Riding Hood, because she kind of lied to him, and then he lied to her. But also like in terms of a Little Red Riding Hood adaptation, this one's almost asking like, what if the wolf liked playing human and he just had to because it's in his nature to do it. It's a very frog and scorpion type thing. I feel like the best way to understand this is just sort of give my sort of take on like my thematic breakdown. So to me this is just like a criticism of fascism. It's about how it sort of turns people into dogs. Like you kind of lose like you kind of lose your freedom in a way, because like the whole thing with Fuse's thing is that like it being a dog of fascism, it makes your life easier because you don't have to make any choices, but you're not going to be happy. I feel like that's ultimately the criticism it's trying to do. Maybe if it was a little longer, I actually think it might have maybe worked a little bit better, because then you'd have to have more time to sit with the fact that
Yeah, this is what, an hour and a half, hour 40, somewhere around
it's
there.
a very
Thereabouts.
short film, so there's not like a ton of time to breathe with the revelations. I liked the movie. Ultimately, I think I liked it probably the most of you guys. But yeah, I definitely understand. The last act is a bit confusing, and also like I feel like some of the character work probably could have been a little bit better, because like I get Fuse's character, but like I feel like it's very much like they're very clearly like more like symbols than like real characters, if that makes sense. Like
Fuse doesn't really emote much at all. I mean, I get it. Like, having a girl blow up right in front of your face is a traumatic event, but he doesn't really emote or convey any sign of a person, which, could be the point, considering the position he's in, but even when he's in the relationship with Kay and it feels like his life is about to get better, he still doesn't really, like, react at all.
So like right before I watched this movie, I saw another movie called Ali Fear Eats the Soul, which is a similar thing about like these a kind of love story in like it's in Germany, so it's like a love story in Germany, and that movie is about racism and like how that kind of like pressure affects it, and this one's more about like the pressure of the job sort of causing it to fall apart. But like that was like it was a very easy point of like comparison here, and I was just like that was a much more fleshed out kind of character study, well, in romance, when this was like I don't know. I like the illusions, but I think it was almost maybe a bit too on the nose, maybe. Like, that's kind of like what my issue was, is that like it just kind of spells everything out for you. So I understand exactly what it's trying to say. It's just like in terms of like as a story, I feel like yeah, it gets a little bit convoluted towards the end, and I think it might have been better that instead of like just telling us well he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, rather than just like build up the characters. Like I still like the movie, but like I agree with your criticism. I will say though, in terms of like actual production, this is excellent. I like how realistic like the animation is gunning for. Like it's high realism. What's like ironic is like I know you guys haven't seen the other two movies, but the other two movies are much more like experimental, like abstract kind of movies. So it's kind of funny that this one has like a much more traditional narrative.
It
Is-
did take me a bit to adjust to the realistic style, but I did grow to really like it.
Does
Yeah.
this take place before the other films?
No, it's not like the other films are just like different stories in the universe. It's not
Okay,
like
okay.
it's not like that. Yeah.
I thought they'd be connected in some way. All right.
Yeah, if anything, like this movie has a lot of overlap with the first movie in terms of story, except you would definitely get a lot more confused with that one than this one. Maybe that's why I spelled it out a lot more this time, because the first one's so abstract, it's kind of hard to. I would say like this one is basically just like a genre picture. Like I would say this is V for Vendetta, and like the original movie is Alphaville, and that's two very different films if you've seen both of them. Yeah, but I like how it's got incredibly realistic movement, but like being animated, it can have a lot more like composed shots than something that's a bit more cinema verite. Yeah, I like the kind of like blown out, washed up whites, but even with like the kind of bright lights, it's still got like these noticeable shadows, which I think would probably be harder to capture in live action. So, but yeah, I would say this whole movie is fundamentally about like how you ultimately get kind of dehumanized when you become part of like this fascist machine. Yeah, you kind of lose your choice. You become just kind of a dog on a leash. And what we were confused is it wasn't complicated for them, but it doesn't mean you're gonna necessarily be happy. It just means that you won't have to choose. I do think the whole punchline with the setting is pretty compelling given yeah, it's basically just saying that, if the Nazis won, nothing would change for us. Like in Japan, the exact same thing happened with like it's just this universe is just a little more aggressive, but functionally like the same thing happened with these anti-government protests and an occupying force and all that stuff. I guess like the best way I can describe this movie is it's very smartly written. It's just like as a narrative, it's probably not the most cohesive, which is kind of funny because I would say that about the other movies in the series too. I would actually argue this is probably the most straightforward and functioning as a narrative. But yeah, so I guess you guys probably maybe don't watch the other movies. I don't know if you guys would like them as much.
I'd give this some time to sit down and rewatch it before I go into the other
Yeah.
ones, because I am curious.
Yeah, I'd say the first one's got much more of like it's got a very Lynchian vibe. I haven't
Really?
seen the second one. Yeah, it's pretty abstract. The movies are both kind of on the nose and subtle at the same time, which is kind of funny to say, but yeah.
They do spell out the Red Riding Hood stuff a lot to you.
Yeah, they spell out the Red Riding Hood metaphor.
Quite literally.
It's a great parallel. Like, I'm not gonna knock it. I think it's a great parallel, but like they do it so much to where you're like, yeah, I get it.
Like it's subtle in the fact that it's critiquing America. It's kind of on the nose when it comes to Red Riding Hood parallel, and then like the actual fascism thing is like that's something you kind of have to read between the lines because like the Red Riding Hood thing is ultimately like what they use the Red Riding Hood thing is the Scorpion the Frog story where like a person's like, oh, yeah, a scorpion and a frog, they're like, oh, let's go to let's run away together. Well, not run away together, but it's like, let's escape, take me along. But ultimately the scorpion kills the frog because it's in his nature. Like that's fundamentally what the Red Riding Hood thing is trying to be, is just they want to be more acute with it by like, making it more like, you're trusting someone, but then it turns out they're not who they say they are, which at first, the sort of twist is like, oh, it's Kay is more of a wolf in sheep's clothing, but no, here it's saying that the whatchamacallit Fuse is, and wolves are just wild animals. They're not they can't live a regular life. It's a military thing. There's almost this implication of like almost a I don't know, like a thematic sort of overlap, like Full Metal Jacket almost, where it's like you break down these men and rebuild them into weapons. Part of me was thinking of this. I don't know if you guys ever seen this movie. It's called Freeway.
No.
The best way I can compare
No.
it is like it's similar to Wild at Heart, except instead of being a riff on Wizard of Oz, it's a riff on Red Riding Hood. So I was thinking of that a lot too, just because that's also like a sort of weird twist on the Red Riding Hood fairy tale. But no, that one's pretty different. That one's more about like that's more a riff on like the serial killer story about a dude who and like people's perceptions, because like it's about like this respectable guy who turns out to be a wolf in disguise, and then Red Riding Hood, who everyone thinks is kind of a shitty person when she's not. Just different perceptions and stuff. I guess a lot of people like to use the Red Riding Hood metaphor as just like a riff on, people aren't who they seem to be.
Look at that flesh, pink and
yeah.
plump.
I guess that's also what Hoodwink was about, because that was basically like Rashomon, like, everyone has their own perspective. So if you ever want to do a story about people who aren't what they seem to be, I guess Red Riding is a good metaphor. I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention about the production or the theme.
I really like
story.
the score.
I want to compliment the use of atmosphere, because it's really moody when it needs to be, but it also knows when to be silent. Like the final part where Fuse is hunting down like the higher ups, the investigators. There's no music during that whole part.
I think it was like maybe a low hum at best, but there wasn't really.
But it's somber in all the right ways.
In terms of action, I really liked the opening and ending scene are pretty good. It reminded me of like Akira. Remember that scene in Akira where the dude gets like lit the fuck up?
I've never seen Akira. I just know that he has a funky arm.
Okay, we'll talk about Akira some other day. But similar sort of vibe there in terms of like action. Pretty smart movie. I do think for as convoluted as the twists are, the actual like internal politics of everything as they explain it is pretty coherent, which is kind of funny. Again, it's a very like smartly written movie. It's just it feels like it tries to do too much in too short of a runtime.
Like, they squeeze in those twists in like the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, like first we learned that his Fuse's friend betrays him, and then we learned out that this whole person has technically just been like an entrapment. This person he built a bond with, she isn't the sister. She's another agent, and she's being used by public service as like sort of a mole to sort of entrap them. And then it turns out that he was part of the secret underground group himself, and they were fully aware that this was a plot. And he takes them out. And honestly, for like a second, I wasn't even sure if like he actually, if with the Little Red Riding thing, for a second I thought it was gonna be like, oh, he was a wolf like the whole time, so he never actually had any connection with Kay. Although like he was shown to be clearly distraught, so like we're like, oh, so that was real, which then makes it more tragic. But like it's almost a twist that he cares. Like the fact that he cares was practically a twist to me. It'll probably play better on rewatch. Now that I'm able to absorb it all, I won't be
Lost. Yeah,
trying to
this is
keep
one
track
I'll
of stuff.
also
Yeah.
this is one I'll also rewatch in the future.
That's also my conclusion. It's a very smart film, but it's maybe one that's it just sort of throws you into it, and it does a lot. I mean, even with like the context of the opening explanation, it is basically like in media res. Like we're not giving that much detail on like the nature of the riot and all that stuff. And
It's
even like
just
in the opening, like there's kind of a twist. Like with Patty, it was like there was even more twist with him because he didn't even know that that girl wasn't the main character. So like for a 90-minute film, it really jerks you around a lot. Yeah, like I'd say the second act is like the most coherent, just because like it's just about Fuse and Kay kind of getting to know each other. We have the Little Red Riding Hood metaphors, and that's kind of it. And then we just set up the third act by saying, okay, we're shutting down all the divisions, take them out. I guess that's all my thoughts. I feel like we're just kind of repeating ourselves now.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say on this in general.
Good movie. I'd say we all recommend it, right?
Yeah,
I recommend it.
I mean, I wouldn't not recommend it, so.
If you're into other dystopian fiction, like 1984 and Fahrenheit 451, definitely check it out. If you like Full Metal Jacket, check it out. I feel like it's got a lot of thematic similarities there. And yeah, also check out like Ali Fears the Soul and maybe some Douglas Sirk movies because they're these similar tragic melodramas with heavy political commentary. You guys got something for next week?
Lugia, it's yours.
okay. So for this one, I thought it was time to be returning to a director we haven't talked about in a while, and you probably don't remember who. Albert Pune. We did an episode on Hong Kong 97, and I thought no better time than now. Take a look at another one of his movies, and this is one I have actually seen before, and I didn't.
Captain America?
No, I didn't hate it. I actually remember kind of enjoying it, but I was also watching it with friends. But I figured, why not? Let's try it anyway. Next week, we are going to be talking about Mean Guns.
Mean Guns?
Yep.
It says 1997.
Interesting. Is that Ice-T?
Yep.
I feel bad for this guy. We're not talking about any of his big Hollywood movies. We're still talking. I mean, this one is a Hollywood film, but like, we're not even talking about the movies that like people actually kind of like from him.
But it's also funny.
I was planning on talking about I want to recommend Captain America one day once I get my hands on the director's cut, which is apparently good, but that is really hard to find. Okay. All right. Next week we are talking about Mean Guns by Albert Pune. I don't have a way to end this. Gee, Grandma, you got a really fucked up face.